Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. This is Ukraine War News Update for the 15th of April 2024, second part thereof. Before we get to the military aid and equipment, just to let you know that Berdyansk, as I mentioned earlier, has been hit by two Storm Shadow missiles UK provided at the base of the Russians at South Hydromash. I don't know whether that's actually a repair facility, a manufacturing factory, or just a base of the Russians, but there are details coming out at the moment of the hits both there and I think Crimea in general, Jankoy, Kerch area, Sevastopol. They're all under alert for Ukrainian missiles at the moment. Okay, let's go to military aid and equipment. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba has described as realistic the scenario in which Patriot air defense systems will be deployed in Poland to cover the skies over western Ukraine. Way, I suggest, well, I'm sure many others did as well, but I suggested this like a year ago. Like, why can't they do that? Just have, especially when the Russian missiles veered into Poland and then out again, say, right, we're going to have Polish Patriots positioned in Poland. So they're still basically doing the job they would do for Poland by protecting Polish skies, but also going into Ukrainian skies and shooting down anything, and we're going to call this self-defense. Like, these missiles could be going over Polish air, and we don't want that, so we're going to shoot anything down in the range of the Patriots, which is basically doing a job for the Ukrainians, but then saying then these Patriots can't be hit because they're in Poland, and you'd be attacking NATO, and that kind of, it's a grey area, I admit it, but I think it's a really sound idea. It's realistic now, says Kuleba. In fact, it would also protect NATO countries from drone or missile arrivals on their territory, as I just mentioned. And indeed, here, Ukraine Battle Map talks about this. Ukraine and Poland are in talks with Patriot air defense systems to be used to defend western regions of Ukraine from Russian missiles. Now, here you have the systems being put in Ukraine. But actually, from what I understand it, they'll be in Poland here and here, but still have that kind of protection of, Lviv. I mean, that's huge. And the reason that's huge is because there's an awful lot of defense, military industrial complex operating in the west of Ukraine and around Lviv. And if Polish Patriot batteries can protect them from being attacked by ballistic missiles, then hey, that's super good. Really could be a great solution there, but it is risky, and it will come with the element of escalation that Russia will see it in those terms. I think that a NATO country is overtly protecting Ukraine and getting involved in the war. So it comes with political risk, but I think it would be a fantastic solution if something could happen. Now, I think NATO needs to be pushing the boundaries. Russia keeps pushing the boundaries, right, and doing things, and NATO or the West goes, well, yeah, no, that's not cool. We're not going to do anything about it, particularly, but that's not cool. Well, how about we do things where Russia goes, hey, that's not cool. We're not going to do anything about it, but we'll shout about it. But actually, where can Russia go short of using nukes? Or chemical weapons more overtly, and attacking NATO countries themselves? Like, there is nowhere else to go. So, we can push the envelope more, and Russia will not be able to do anything else more meaningful. It's only the fear of nuclear escalation that keeps people back from doing these things. And if that's always going to keep us back, then we won't do anything extra to help Ukraine, and we absolutely need to. The SPU says Ukraine's modernized sea drones can carry 1 ton of explosives over 1,000 kilometers. This is huge. Ukrainian naval drones, and we reported this before, but it's just the reconfirmation of this. Ukrainian naval drones, the Sea Baby drones, have been modernized, can now carry almost a ton of explosives to hit a target 1,000 kilometers away. And this means the SBU can reach a target almost anywhere in the Black Sea. That is really good news. Now, the challenge is in this arms race that you get the measure, and the increasing capability of the measure is really good here for the Sea Babies, but then the countermeasure is going to be put in place. So now you've had Shoigu coming over, looking at ships in Sevastopol, at Novorossiysk and whatnot, and saying, right, why haven't you got anti-drone measures on these ships. So they're starting to put drones on board the ships, so aerial drones and sea drones to operate from ships to defend against other sea drones, and then machine guns that can have a much increased sort of, not elevation, but reverse of elevation. Don't know what you call that. De-elevation. Pointing downwards. You need to be able to point down at the sea to shoot out these drones as they come and attack you, rather than have a minimum which shoots over there. Well, as soon as the drones are under that, then you can't shoot below that level. So the Russians are going to be adapting to stop these drones having such an effect when they are used. Right, moving on. On the day of the Defence Industrial Complex Worker, so this is the kind of daily particular day that Ukraine has, like the day of military intelligence, the day of air defences, and they celebrate stuff, and that's really cool. So now it's the Defence Industrial Complex Worker, because these guys are super important. They are helping to keep the Ukrainian army stocked up with weapons that can allow them to have an advantage over the Russians, or at least on a par. Zelensky was shown the Ukrainian analogue of the Russian Lancet kamikaze drone. There's been a lot of talk about this. It can strike targets at an operational tactical depth of 100 plus kilometers. Now, I don't know if this is, so there was talk about this being the Ram X drone. But I think that's a different one without this kind of X-wing formation. So I don't know. Anyway, there's talk about this drone again today. Now, NATO will hand over 5 anti-mine ships to Ukraine, so mine hunters, according to spokesman of the Navy, Dmytro Platenchuk. However, now due to the effect of the Montreux Convention, so the inability to get naval vessels or warships or whatnot through the Bosphorus Straits at Istanbul, because Turkey controlled that area, and the Montreux Convention from 1931, I think it is, says that if two nations are at war in the Baltic Sea, we will close that to the warring nations' military vessels. And that means neither Russia nor Ukraine can get extra military vessels into the Black Sea. So they had to bring them down through canals, if they're small enough to bring through canals, either through Russia or through the Danube or whatever. However, due to the Montreux Conventions, these ships cannot enter the waters of our sea. The Black Sea needs a full-fledged demining operation. It's already planned. The headquarters has been created, and the crews of the ships are preparing. So we have just heard that 2 ships over in Pompey, just over there, are in the UK. They are 2 Sandown mine hunters have been renamed as the Cherkasy and Chernitsky, I think, and they are, or the Chernihiv. They are under now Ukrainian crews who have been trained, and they're ready to go. There are also the 5. I know there are 2 Dutch minesweepers. I forget the class. I do know the class, actually. They are Alkmaar class mine hunters that are going to be handed over in 2025. So I believe they're probably getting refurbished, fitted up. I think they're pretty old. And the crew is being trained, Ukrainian crew. I don't know where the other one comes from, but that's really good news. I was wondering I don't know whether mine hunters ever get used on NATO training deployments, but whether they'd start kind of allowing Ukrainian ships to be part of these kind of wargaming sessions and training activities out in the Atlantic or wherever. So, yeah. Anyway, Lithuanian government. Oh, I recognise the shirt like that. I'm wearing one from Mark and Olena today. So thank you so much again to them for this wonderful present. Really deeply, deeply appreciated. The Lithuanian government is ready to provide a €400,000 support package to the Ukrainian Education Security Services project to equip schools with metal detectors. Fantastic. So sad that they would need that, though. Ursula von der Leyen has called on the US Congress to approve the large-scale aid package to Ukraine. So she's head honcho at the European Union. According to her, further delay with the bill, quote, will harm not only Ukraine, but also the Atlantic Alliance as a whole. Ukraine deserves the support of, quote, all free countries of the world. She emphasised calling on the EU for unity on the issue and noting that allied countries must send the right signal to all autocracies in order to, quote, prevent military aggressions in other places. This is good news. She's getting strong on rhetoric concerning the US's impasse in Congress. Now, there's all sorts of talk about the bill, or whether it will be the Senate bill that will be passed through the House of Representatives. So remember, you've got the president, but the president can't really do anything without the Senate and the House of Representatives under the same party's control. Ideally, either party, Democrats or Republicans, will want a trifecta, with all three working together to pass through legislation that is in line with what that particular party wants. But if you don't control all three, then you have to do bipartisan work. In other words, you have to work with the opposition party to get any bill or any governance done. And the problem is that the Democrats have a very slim majority in the Senate of, I think, 50. There's 50. There's 100 senators. And with 438 or however many it is at the present, I don't know, a couple have resigned and things going on. Representatives in the House of Representatives, which is that house that's lower than the Senate, they rule for 6 years. These guys rule for 2 years only. So they're constantly campaigning. Now, these guys, because there's only a majority for the Republicans of 1 in the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson is on a knife edge. But in order for anything to happen in the US government as a whole, the House of Representatives has to have the Republicans working with the Democrats. You cannot get a bill passed unless both parties work together. So where Mike Johnson has realised this and worked to keep the government open and done a bipartisan bill, and where Democrats and Republicans have come together to stop the government shutdown or to get Pfizer passed through, the reauthorization of Pfizer, which has been changed and I think is a good outcome there, and it's going to be relooked at in 2 years rather than 5 years and so on and so forth. You have to work together. But then you get the MAGA wing, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying, how dare you work with the Democrats? You're like, yeah, but I have to work with the Democrats if we want to govern. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we employed to do? What are we elected to do if not to govern? And if we cannot govern, then there's no point us being here. And that includes you, Marjorie Taylor Greene. But Marjorie Taylor Greene then goes, yeah, but you spoke to the Democrats, so screw you. I'm going to move to vacate your seat because we changed the rules so that actually individually I can move to vacate your seat. It's all part of the deals that were done when Kevin McCarthy was Speaker and had to go through 13 different votes to get re-elected as Speaker. And one of the compromises he made with the Freedom Caucus, which are people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz and all that, is that, okay, you can easily vacate the Speaker much more easily than previously. And that's the problem, is that's happening now. So Mike Johnson is looking over his shoulder at Marjorie Taylor Greene, then looking over at Trump, and then thinking, right, what do I do given that either one of these people could just cause me to lose my job? And so even though deep in the recesses of his mind, I think he probably does support Ukraine, he's basically bowing down to the power of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump. And this is a big problem. So although US Senator Chuck Schumer, so he is in the Senate where the Democrats have a slight advantage, majority, says congressional party leaders have reached a consensus. So that means the Senate, House of Representatives and the Biden administration, that's how I interpret that, have reached a consensus on aid to Ukraine and Israel, because of obviously Iran attacking Israel has meant that now Republicans are feeling much more open in saying we need an aid package and it should go also to Ukraine as well. In other words, that Senate bill that's been passed 70-29, the quickest way to get aid to Israel is to get that Senate bill passed of $95 billion that includes Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan. US Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has said that US President Joe Biden and congressional leaders during an April the 14th call yesterday reached a consensus that Congress should act quickly to provide aid both to Israel and Ukraine. Schumer hopes that something will be done this week, so this week that we're in, starting in now, to help the two nations, he said at a press conference in New York. Okay, the problem is that again, they seem to be forever on recess, but Congress is due to go on recess for 4 more days. So Putin's MAGA only needs Congress to block Ukraine aid for 4 more days before they go on recess at the end of this week. And that seems to be for a whole week and 2 weekends possibly. So that is Friday. They appear to be going on recess. So they have very short amount of time to get this passed. And realistically, the only way of getting this passed is that Senate bill that's already been passed in Senate. So you don't have to send it back to the Senate, right? Rather than make up some new bill. But the fear of many is that with Mike Johnson looking over his shoulder at MTG and Trump is going to say, I'm only going to put a bill for Israel forward and we're going to forget Ukraine. So Mike Johnson has said, as Israel faces this vicious attack from Iran, America must show a full resolve to stand with our critical ally. The world must be assured Israel is not alone. Now remember, he's not been so strong on saying the same for Ukraine. I will continue to engage with the White House to insist upon a proper response. The Biden administration undermining of Israel and appeasement of Iran have contributed to these terrible developments. Now, I said that to you yesterday and called him out on being incorrect there, but people are like jumping on this. Anne Applebaum. This tweet is an extraordinary exhibition of dishonesty. It is Mike Johnson who has appeased Russia and Iran for many months by refusing to allow the House to vote on a bill that could provide weapons to defend against both of them. So it's this, Mike Johnson, you are being hypocritical. It's not the Biden administration. It's you, literally you, that has effectively worked to appease Iran and Russia together. And then when considering Marjorie Taylor Greene, who we heard the other day from Ro Khanna, who is a Democrat representative, saying she has inordinate power in the House, like they don't even have rules and procedures voting until she arrives, which is against what the protocol normally is, which is if you don't turn up in time, you don't get a vote. Well, they hold it open for her to arrive. She gets to wear what she likes, like physically clothing. In the State of the Union, I don't think she's supposed to be wearing what she's wearing, but is allowed to get away with it. She holds much more power than people give her credit for. They dismiss her at your peril, right? She is effectively stopping the US government delivering aid internationally. That's how powerful she is. And then she says personally herself, it's anti-Semitic to make Israeli aid contingent on funding Ukrainian Nazis. These should be separate bills. I mean, did you say that about the border? Was it, when you made things, things are contingent when it's convenient for you. She was then called up on this in community notes. In February, Marjorie Taylor Greene voted against a standalone bill for support of Israel. The bill was drafted by GOP, but MTG and a number of right-wing Republicans voted against it. So she's actually just been called out on this. So No Report says, if you ever doubt Russian propaganda has entered US politics, look at this. Now, this is in the context of Turner and McCall, who are both Republicans, claiming that Russian propaganda has indeed infected the Republican Party, particularly in the House of Representatives. And those are Republicans saying it themselves. Ilya Ponomarenko, the Ukrainian journalist, said, did I tell you we're living in the dumbest period of history ever? I think I did, in response to what Marjorie Taylor Greene has said. And then you've got Jane Kiev pointed out, have you noticed who she follows on Twitter? So among the several batshit crazy Russian disinformation accounts that Marjorie Taylor Greene follows and interacts with is this one, pushing every imaginable Russian talking point and conspiracy from Ukrainian Nazis, biolabs, and praising Putin like a golden deity. This is her information space, and it is a real problem. Sean Pinner, who I'm interviewing in a couple of hours, in 1 hour 30 minutes, says Marjorie Taylor Greene and her anti-Semitic tweet, while slurring the whole nation of Ukraine, is indeed itself fascist and anti-Semitism in its basic form. Ukraine has a Jewish president, deputy, and an Islamic defense minister. Ukraine has some of the largest Jewish communities outside of Israel and America. Ukraine has virtually no far-right representation in parliament, and it's been largely excluded from national politics since independence in 1991. Marjorie Taylor Greene is regurgitating Russian propaganda and should be sued. This isn't free speech. This is incitement, hatred, and false information. There are people calling on Marjorie Taylor Greene to be investigated, by the way. This is how serious what her rhetoric is and the effect it has on international security. Holy crap, that one woman, I would argue, and her puppet Mike Johnson are allowing all sorts of evils to happen around the world. It's inordinate power, and that's why I talk about her. David Frum, remember, this is a Republican speechwriter for George W. Bush, who is at the moment being forced to say things to support the Democrats because the Republicans have gone AWOL on international diplomacy. He said in 2022, a Democratic House approved 4 aid requests to Ukraine, totaling $75 billion. Since then, a Republican House has refused all aid to Ukraine. It's not the United States that's abandoning its friends. It's the Trump Republicans. This is George W. Bush's speechwriter. So I know I get, and someone today, unfortunately, had enough of me saying my things against Trump Republicans. Sorry, Johnny, I tried this. The world is effed. I enjoyed your streams for almost 2 years. You, my friend, have gone so far off the deep end of bashing my country. Every chance you get, it's not even funny anymore. It's not even fun anymore. Congratulations, you put another American on a path of F Ukraine. Like, if you think me having a go at Marjorie Taylor Greene means that you should now go and say F Ukraine, it's not me that needs to sort out my own behaviour. It's probably you. Like, I am trying to just argue. Like, I am totally with people like McCall, although I think they should stand up even stronger and say far more robust things against the GOP positioning on things. But McCall and Turner, yeah, I'm with you on supporting Ukraine. I'm just not with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm with Adam Kinzinger. I'm with Liz Cheney. I disagree vehemently with Liz Cheney's politics, but this is about Ukraine and about international security and about America's actually best interests. And so I'm going to call out the people who are stopping $60 billion of aid getting to Ukraine. And I will continue doing that until that aid gets there. So, yeah. A project on the construction of power units number 5 and 6 based on the American technology of Westinghouse, Energoatom has said, was launched in Khmelnytsky nuclear power plant. So this is really interesting, where we're starting to see American nuclear interests help out Ukraine in the absence of Russia being able to do that. And there was worry that only, Russian tech and Russian nuclear reactors and whatnot could be used in these places, but actually, the 5th unit of the Khmelnytsky nuclear power plant will be the first in Ukraine built using American AR-1000 technology. That's really good news, and really important that the US, or that Westinghouse particularly, is able to come to Ukrainian aid there. Now, moving on to more overtly geopolitical stuff, although it's all kind of part of the same thing. Yulia Navalnaya met with British Foreign Secretary. So Alexei Navalny's wife, that is, Alexei Navalny dedicated his life to exposing the corruption of Putin's system and defending the interests of the Russian people. Yulia continues his fight. It was an honour to meet her today, David Cameron says. So he's mixing with, I think, the right people, important people. No to the Russian war law. Several hundred people are taking part in another rally against the draft law on foreign agents in Tbilisi, in Georgia. So we've had huge protests against this law in Georgia Dream, the ruling party's second attempt to get this done. And this is to basically give them a greater grip on their own democratic mechanisms and institutions and processes. That is going down that authoritarian path similar to what Russia's done, similar to what Hungary's done, and it's basically taking that law and trying to enact it in Georgia, but people aren't happy. The protest action is taking place in the courtyard of the Georgian parliament. Protesters unfurled an EU flag, chanting slogans against the adoption of the bill on transparency of foreign influence. Now the legal committee of the parliament is considering the bill. The EU flag was hung from one of the balconies of the Parliament building. This was done by opposition deputies. Mitavari Aki TV channel reports. The rally against the bill on foreign agents near the Parliament building continues. A poll has come out saying 70% of Lithuanians consider Russia a threat to national security. 7 out of 10 residents of Lithuania believe that Russia poses a threat to their country's national security, according to a poll carried out by public opinion research company and published by Lithuanian public broadcaster. Interesting. And Polish farmers continue to block 3 checkpoints on the border with Ukraine. This is a right pain in the backside. In total, more than 600 trucks are waiting in line at these checkpoints on the territory of Poland. So they seem to be blocking stuff going into Ukraine rather than stuff coming out of Ukraine. And importantly, they're not blocking the Belarusian border where cheap Russian and Belarusian agri-produce is coming in. And this is, I was speaking to Jonathan to think about this off air. And he was saying, like, I'm damn sure that although there might be genuine grievances, that this is predominantly being sorted out by nefarious actors on behalf of the Kremlin, because they are not doing it. They are stopping stuff going into Ukraine for a start, which is kind of weird. So that's going to include things like military aid, good, stuff to help the war effort. And they are not stopping all that agricultural product that they're complaining about coming from Ukraine coming through the Belarusian border. So it does seem incredibly dubious, and I am with him to some large degree there. I'm not saying there aren't genuine issues that those hauliers and farmers have, but I think it's all rather convenient for my liking. Anyway, that's enough from me. Take care. Speak soon.